Hey, Mike here, and it's 2 a.m. I'm delirious, so I'm having fun with Kajabi, bullet points, and ChatGPT. So let me show you this because it's really cool. But basically, what's going on is I'm writing a sales page, and I have these questions here. It's 2 a.m. I'm delirious, and so I start thinking, hey, let's put in some emojis here to just make this pop a little bit more. And as we're looking at this, though, I thought, well, can I make these emojis here the actual bullet points? Because look, I have a bullet point emoji and then a dash. I just feel like it'd be cleaner if the emojis themselves were the bullet points. Is that possible? I don't know. Okay. Well, I do know now because if I scroll up here, boom, look at that. All right. Now, it's not as clean as I would like it to be, but the fact is that I had the question. I don't know how to do it. I know it's HTML and CSS, so I went to ChatGPT and they told me how to do it. Okay, so what I did is I basically copied all of the questions and the emoticons that I wanted, or the emojis that I wanted. I came over and I said HTML code to use these emojis as the bullet points for these questions, and then I just pasted it. So basically, how do I write the HTML such that I can use these emojis as the bullet points for these questions, right? And so it started doing something weird, and so then I just stopped it, and then I just asked GPT, is it possible to use the emojis as the bullet points? And so it understood that a little bit better, and so it wrote it out. It said, yes, it's possible to use emojis as bullet points by using CSS. Here's the updated HTML code. And so it pretty much gave me this, and this looked about right? So at the top of like an HTML document, that's where you can put like the CSS styling right here. And so this looked like it was about right. Plus, I also noticed that here in the body with the list element, it added almost this like unique kind of identifier. And so the list, within the list element right here, I could see the emojis. So this started to look a little bit closer to what I wanted because we have the CSS styling up here. And I noticed that here we're getting to the point where the emojis are going to be able to serve as the list element. And so then I said, okay, but I'm using basically Kajabi, right? So I'm using just a little code block, and so I can only write HTML really in that code block. At least that's what I think. Maybe you might be able to write like CSS in those things, but I don't know. So I just always write HTML. So I said I can only write HTML. However, there's a separate place where I can write CSS. So how can I separate the CSS up here from the HTML, but also create unique identifiers for the specific list so that the list items only apply, so the list emojis only apply to this list, right? And so you can see here that up at the top, what I was concerned about is that the styling or whatever is going to apply to all lists. Not that it's that big of a deal because I'd have to specify what the emoji was, but I wanted to give this list specifically a unique identifier. So whatever CSS there was, that CSS would only apply to this specific list. And so, like, this is crazy, And so it said you can separate the CSS from the HTML and apply to a specific list by assigning a unique identifier to the list. Here's how you can do it. And so it says add a unique identifier to the UL element in the HTML code. And so the UL element is an unordered list. So here it added a unique identifier, emoji bullet list, okay? And so this is the HTML. And so this is the HTML I need to copy into Kajabi. And you can see that it did an ellipses here. And so I just needed to come up here, copy the rest of the list, and I just needed to make sure I have an unordered list with this unique identifier. Then when I go over to the CSS, I can drop the CSS in there and know that this CSS is only going to apply to this list with the unique identifier. And so if we come back over to Kajabi and I come over, let's just do this for fun, So I'm going to come over to the sections. I'm going to just duplicate this headline complex again. So we'll go to duplicate, and we'll just do it at the bottom here. And so let's do this again. I'm going to copy this. get rid of all this, okay? And I'm going to go like that, although it's going to automatically update it. So I'm going to actually come back over to the settings. We'll go to custom code and the CSS. I'm just going to take the CSS away for now. Let's go to save. Okay, so now it's back to just a normal list. I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to copy these, the rest of the list elements. So we'll come over here. I'm going to go to the HTML, and let's just add the rest of the list elements. Okay, that looks about right. And there we go. So we have all the questions. And so now it's just a matter of making sure. I'm just going to check something really quick. Okay, looks good. And now it's just okay, so we've dropped the HTML. So when we come to the HTML, you can see that the data emoji is right here, but it's not showing up yet. So that's why I need to drop the CSS, because the CSS is basically going to say replace these bullets with the emojis. And again, I didn't know how to do this. I mean, I kind of had an idea of what needed to be in place, but ChatGPT is what wrote this all up, you know, which is just incredible. All right, so coming over to the custom code, I'm going to come over here, and we're going to come to the CSS. So in a separate CSS file or section, use the unique ID to target the list and apply the styles only to the list items within that specific list. Exactly what I was asking for. So I'm literally copying this, and I didn't even look to see what this really is. Obviously, it's a little bit of styling with a list, a little bit of margin, and then right here is the magic part, the content with the attribute and the data emoji. This is what's basically, and you can see list element before. This is basically was converting that, the before thing instead of the dot is going to be the emoji. So if I come back over here and we go to the CSS section, so in Kajabi we have the sections here in the page builder, and then we hop over to settings. We can come over to the custom code in the CSS, and I can drop that in there. And then if I hit save, you're going to see that these little dots here are going to be converted, or bullet points are going to be converted to the emojis. Watch this. Look at that. That is so crazy. That is so cool. I mean, that would have taken, I would have figured it out, but it probably would have taken me 2 to 3 hours, I'm thinking, because I'd go over to some HTML website, CSS website, learn about, you know, what I needed to put as this, and blah, 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 right? But ChatGPT was able to figure that out really quick. I thought that was incredible and worth sharing, so there you go. That was fun with Kajabi, emojicons as emojis as bullet points, and then ChatGPT.